Hello, everybody. Welcome to our channel, Our Scientology Stories, Peeling the Onion. And it's in the morning time, our time here, 10 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast, 1 o'clock Eastern time. And I want to bring in my co-host, Janis Gillham Grady. Hello, Janis. How are you today?
Aloha, Mark.
Aloha.
Good day, everyone.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Got up bright and early while it was still cool and took my horse out for a ride, and I'm ready to take on the day.
That's great. We are expecting a special guest, Ken Urquhart, here today to do an interview, but we've sent him the link and he hasn't responded yet. So we're going to go ahead and carry on with the show right now and then add him in when he's ready to join us. But anyway, we wanted to welcome everybody. Get in the chat. Let us know where you're watching from. We'll shout you out here if you get in the chat and say where you're from. And meanwhile, Janis, what have you been doing? You've had a special guest all week, haven't you?
Yes, my cousin from Australia, Miles. He lived in England for the last 6 months, so he's on his way back to Australia. So he's been spending the whole week with my sister and I, and we've been having a lot of fun. We went down to the Wynn Hotel and we watched their new show called Awakening by Cirque du Soleil. That was very entertaining. Great special effects. And yeah, so we've just been hanging out and having fun.
That's great. That's great. Okay. It looks like we've got somebody here from Fort Lauderdale, Bakersfield, California, Alberta, Canada, Sweden. Wow. We've got Sweden here, Central Illinois here, Hot Agua Dulce, California, Hollywood, Florida, 109-degree heat index. Yeah, we're about the same, 108, 109 later today. We've got Dallas, Texas in the house, and Orange, wherever that is.
California, Florida,
Lincoln, California. Oh, we got Germany, Solingen, Germany. Okay. Orange is La Habra, California. Okay. And we want to welcome you all here as you join East Grinstead. There we go. Saint Hill in the house.
Yes.
Hello from Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. I mispronounced it, I'm sure. We've got greetings from the Netherlands and some other places too. Anyway, just so you know, what we're going to do is when Ken Urquhart gets in here, we're going to go to talk to him. We've got questions for him to answer. But in the meantime, what we're going to do is go over our news of the week. And then if he doesn't come in, then Janis and I are going to be open for questions. So you can go ahead and write the word question in the chat so it's easy for us to spot. You can super chat us. You can super sticker us. We really appreciate the support. And then, Janis, we're going to do a giveaway, right, later on?
Yes, we're going to do book 1. But if you already have book 1, we will do book 2.
That's right. And she will autograph it and send it to the winner. So we'll have that later on in the chat. So stick around for that. Okay. So in the meantime, let's go ahead and get started. This is a recap of the news of the week. Onion peeling news this week. Okay. And the first slide I've got here. Last Saturday, we did Scientology Lies Again, Not Supposed to Be the Boss. And that was a very popular live stream that we did. And when we talked about David Miscavige and Scientology, were completely lying about, him being anointed by Hubbard and his closeness to Hubbard and all that. And we got a lot of response to that, right, Janis?
Yes, we did. A very good response.
Okay. Next, we were busy this week. Monday night, we did Monday Live with Aaron Smith-Levin on his channel. And that was really popular. We got into some really deep discussions about Scientology, its auditing and that type of thing. And that was a lot of fun. And then I was on afterwards. This is scheduled beforehand. I was on with the Never Ends, Marilyn Honig, Clearwater Chad, Denver Stevo. And I was on after this Monday Live and talked with them, and we talked about that. But that was a lot of fun. It's always great to reach out. And also we met Relatable Reese, right, Janis?
Yeah, we did. That was fun. And even Aaron admitted getting case game with us being there.
That's funny. We got good afternoon from Georgia. Hello from Tucson, Phoenix, Arizona. We welcome you all here. Okay. Then after this was on Monday. we released part 1 of our interview with Neville Chamberlain about the Scientology liability cruise, and it was Scientology Invades by Sea, and that was a tongue-in-cheek reference joke about the lifeboat drill. Janis, just give a brief, what happened to that in terms of the lifeboats. Well, how did you guys end up on the beach?
Yeah, we were doing lifeboat drills, and we lowered the lifeboats and we're rowing, and we were doing, someone had to draw, the mountainside, what it looked like, and someone else got a sample from the bottom of the ocean. And we were supposed to then go back to the ship, but the current was pushing us into the land, and the winds were pushing us in, and a storm was coming up. And we ended up 3 lifeboats with no money and no passports, illegally beached in Spain, off the coast of Spain. And then,
here's part 2, which is when you guys started playing leapfrog on the beach, right?
Yeah, we had nothing else to do, so we did leapfrog, and people laid around and slept, and Claire and I went up the stairs and marched back down at gunpoint, and it was an interesting, I was 11 years old at the time, interesting incident.
Yeah, and you look like, what did they call it? A waif? Or no, what was
a waif?
Waif. You look like your waifish self. Yeah.
Yeah, Hubbard used to call me a little waif, and so.
But that was fun with Neville Chamberlain. He was there on the cruise with you. And so we released part 1, and this was part 2 that came out with the resolution. And this was in Spain in 1968 when Spain was under Francisco Franco, and it was a very closed society at that time. So they didn't know what was going on. So they kept you guys on the beach and all that. Anyway, then go ahead.
Well, hang on. Someone just asked if I was scared during that incident. I wasn't scared. My dad was there, and I also had all these adults who seemed to kind of try and take control, and so I wasn't kind of on my own. I was scared when Claire and I were marched down at gunpoint, at 11 years old, and also when we were loaded into the back of the trucks, it was at gunpoint. Getting into these trucks at nighttime was like, where are we going? And I was very cold. And then, we ended up on a fishing vessel trying to take us back out to the ship.
Right. Then Friday, Mark Headley and Claire Headley, as part of the Aftermath Foundation, they released their documentary that they had spent the last year or so putting together on Serge Obelinsky. And it was a heartbreaking story about this was a child of Sea Org members, right, Janis? Ivan Obelinsky, who had been the captain of AOLA.
Yes, Ivan Obelinsky was the captain of AOLA. He went through several wives, and I believe he had like 4 or 5 children while he was in the Sea Org, and he blew, leaving all the kids behind, is my understanding.
Yeah, and then Serge got in an accident where he was playing with some firecrackers or whatever, blew up. He lost his right eye and both of his hands, and he was then abandoned, and he lived homeless on the streets of Hollywood Boulevard for over 10 years until somebody reached out to him and actually started to get him some help. And then they contacted Mark Headley, who had known him when he was in the Sea Organization, and the Aftermath stepped up and helped Serge get his life back together to the point where he graduated. He got his GED, his high school equivalency, and he's well on the way now to starting his life over. And it was all thanks to some other social workers, but also the Aftermath Foundation. And then after the documentary, I was on a live after party. You can see over there on the right with Mark and Claire Headley, Amy Scobie and Matt Pash, Aaron Smith-Levin, and Kelly Copter and Gary Jackson Moorhead. And we were on for another 2 hours, and it was a fundraiser for the Aftermath Foundation. And from the time we started the after party until it was done, they raised $15,000. That's how generous the viewers are on SPTV. $15,000 in 2 hours. Amazing.
Well, and they're now up to 20,000. They're now up to 20,000.
That's really amazing. And I know after we do our live stream, Mark and Claire are doing another fundraiser live stream for Serge and the Aftermath Foundation. But anyway, it was really a wonderful thing to be a part of. And, it was pretty disgusting. I actually was disgusted when I found out that his father was Ivan Obelinsky, because Ivan had money. He was wealthy when he was in the Sea Org. But, that he apparently is reconnected. Serge has with Ivan, but still, there was a lot of neglect, both by Scientology and his family. And anyway, if you haven't seen the documentary, it's on Mark and Claire's channel. You should definitely watch it. And, it'll bring your tissue box with you, because it's a tearjerker, that's for sure. But it has a happy, uplifting ending. So anyway, so we did that on Friday. Okay. And then yesterday, Saturday, we went live from Italy with Claudio and Renato Lugli, and they were former Sea Org members in Italy, and they talked about the expansion in Italy in the 70s and 80s, which was quite fantastic, right? And Renata had been a fashion model in Italy before she joined the Sea Organization. Beautiful, beautiful woman. And then Claudio and her, they basically got in Scientology and were on staff. In 1982, they were kicked out and left Scientology, or not Scientology, they were kicked out of the Sea Organization. And
because they had kids.
Yeah, and so they started on their own. Just what can we do? And they became famous fashion designers in Italy for all type of clothing. She started out knitting sweaters, and then Claudio started designing shirts and suits and ties and shoes and all sorts of things. And it got to the point where he was so famous and doing so well that a lot of celebrities, famous jazz musicians like Miles Davis and Chick Corea, were wearing his clothes. And David Miscavige liked some shirts that somebody was wearing and asked who they were by, and he said Claudio Lugli. Anyway, Claudio and Renata became David and Shelly Miscavige's personal designers for their casual clothes, and Renata designed all of Shelly's formal wear. And we've got photographs of all the different stuff that they did for them. Eventually, though, they had a falling out with Scientology and with the church. Claudio read the Truth Rundown series in 2009 and told Renata about it. But the sad thing, though, is that they're one of their sons, Flavio, he was a Sea Org member in Clearwater, and he's still there to this day. And he basically disconnected from his family. Scientology got him to spy on his family as well. And it's a very sad story. And of course, Claudio and Renata would love for their son, and he's now married, for them to reach out and be in communication. Right, Janis?
Yeah, it's very sad. It's this continuation of the disconnection, which is absolutely not needed, except the only reason they have it is because they don't want people talking and finding out the truth of what's really going on. But it affects families badly, and it's affected them. And it's a sad story on how it is right now.
Yeah, and if you haven't watched it yet, please take the time to do it. Claudio and Renata, English is their second language. You have to listen carefully, but you can get the gist of what they're saying, and they're very passionate about their story and about their family and about their time in Scientology. But it's well worth the watch. There's lots of photographs, and it's really interesting. I think you'll enjoy it. What were you going to say?
Yeah, Renata gets on a roll. It was a great role.
Yeah, she does, and it's a lot of passion. It was great. So that was yesterday, and then we had a big event this week, right, Janis?
Yes, my sister, after 48 years, got her U.S. citizenship. And what was funny? What was funny is when she was in there with everybody else, the agents there were like, they had never seen a green card so old, because in the old days they used to be pink, and Terry, you have to turn in your green card. So they were like, wow, we got to frame this. And then they announced it to the whole room that they had someone there who was finally getting their citizenship after all these years. And Terry's like, it's me.
Well, she's now a U.S. citizen. I take it she can vote now, right? Does she get the right to vote as well? Yeah.
Yep, she gets the right to vote and jury duty, and she gets to remain an Australian citizen as well. So she's got dual citizenship.
That's great. And then you actually became a citizen several years ago, correct?
Yeah, like 2019.
Yeah,
I wasn't as long as her.
No, and your father too, right?
Yeah, I did mine with my dad when he did his. He was 91 years old when he did his.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we want to say congratulations to Terry. That's a picture of Janis and Terry when they were in the Sea Org on the Apollo. And that's a picture of them earlier this week after Terry had been sworn in as a United States citizen. So anyway, we want to say congratulations to Terry. Okay. The next thing I just wanted to mention is channel memberships. Okay. We want to thank, we have some new channel members, which we really appreciate. We're about halfway to our goal. We've got 2 more weeks. Okay. And we need to add another 15 channel members. Okay. And as far as channel memberships go, this is extra. This is not, you can subscribe. There's no problem with that. We really appreciate it. But this is a voluntary way for viewers to contribute to the channel. Okay. And, basically, we have 3 levels. We've got our Peeling Supporters as our basic level, and you get member shout-outs, a loyalty badge in the chats, and emojis for the chats, and that's just $3.99 per month. There's no contract, and you can cancel at any time, okay? Peeling Professionals is our middle level, and that you get the same perks from the previous level, plus we're going to have a members-only monthly live stream with Mark and Janis for the Peeling Professionals. And then you get one of Janis's canvas shopping bags with her book on both sides, which is right here. Janis is holding it up. And then you get discounted merchandise, 5%. We're going to be putting up merchandise here in the future, and you get an automatic 5% discount as a Peeling Professional. That's $9.99 per month, no contract, and cancel at any time. And then our top level is Peeling Masters. And as a Peeling Master, you get all the perks from the previous levels, plus a monthly one-on-one live stream with Mark and Janis. So basically, you'll get a 10 or 15-minute live stream, just Janis, me, and you, where you can ask us anything you want, talk about anything you want, get to know each other. And it's going to be a great way for you to just get closer with us and get more information. But you also get an autographed copy of Janis's book, free shipping in the United States, and you get a 10% discount on the merchandise that we're going to be putting out. That's $19.99 per month, no contract, cancel anytime. And it's very simple to join and become a master. Just go to our page on YouTube, our Scientology Peeling the Onion page, and click on the join button, and then just follow the instructions on it. And we need another 15 members here in the next 2 weeks. So we'd really appreciate, even if you're just a supporter, it's $3.99 a month. We would really appreciate the support and help. You need to do that on a laptop or a PC or an Android phone. If you have an iPhone, you only can do it if you go through the Google Chrome app to get to YouTube. And if you do that, then there'll be a join button on there. So that's how you become a member. And we really appreciate any of the support you all add to us. And Janis, we have looks like our guest has arrived. Okay.
Yes.
And without further ado here, I want one more thing before I add him to the stream. Janis, we got, I wanted to show this, okay, because it was really cute. We got a Mr. Bill doll, Mr. Bill doll in the mail, one for you and one for me. And when he you press him, he goes, "Oh no, oh no." And my dog Misha's over here trying to get a hold of it. But anyway, we want to thank John Sistowski, who's Mr. Bill, and he sent these to us, and we want to really thank him for sending them to him. They're really cute, and my dog is enthralled with it. As a matter of fact, she's looking right now. You can't see her. She's up here going, "What is that? What is that?" So anyway, we want to thank John for that gift. It was very cute. And Janis, I'll get it over to you shortly, okay?
Okay. Yes,
all right,
thank you, John.
Without further ado, our guest is here, and he was started as in Scientology in the 1960s. He was L. Ron Hubbard's butler at Saint Hill, and then he eventually became his personal communicator in Scientology and in the Sea organization. And I would like to welcome, we've interviewed him many times, Mr. Ken Urquhart. Hi, Ken. How you doing?
Hello, Mark. I'm doing okay, thank you. I'm sorry I'm late. I swore today was Saturday.
Oh no, that's okay.
I've been in Saturday all day.
we're just glad that you came on, because we were just going to wing it and just go ahead and answer questions. But now that you're here, we've got a bunch of questions that people have asked in the past, and also things that you'd like to comment on. So we're happy you're here, and you're in Scotland right now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Fabulous. Ken, one thing I was just going to mention, since the last time we do it, if for some reason if I'm saying something, or Janis, and you want to interrupt or have a question, just put your finger up and we'll do likewise. And that just means hold for a second so we can ask a question, or vice versa. Okay. And that way we don't cut each other's communication. Just like that. Yeah. And that way we stay in communication and there's no problems or anything like that. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, we have some questions here, Ken, that you had sent to us from different viewers from before, and I wrote some of them out. I simplified them down, but I thought we would start with those questions, and then to our viewers, you can go ahead and get in the chat, write question in front of the chat, and Janis will star them and we'll put them to the side. We'll ask Ken those questions. You can super sticker us, super chat us. We would really appreciate the support. And we will go ahead and get started. I'll put the first question up here for you, Ken, okay? And it is this. What happened in 1973 and the following years that made L. Ron Hubbard change his direction of Scientology?
I think it was the trip, the time he spent in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, arose because he seemed to have spent a lot of time watching the TV and noticing how popular certain music groups were and how they could influence public opinion. At any rate, he came back to the ship with a clear purpose of forming musical groups, and with the conviction that he could train up musical groups to be wildly and internationally popular for the sake of promoting his own purposes. That was one change. But in my mind, generally speaking, he was less in touch with reality when he came back than he had been before. He came back as the Commodore, but he was as much this music promoter as he was Commodore. And that began an unhappiness between him and me, because I really wasn't interested in the music groups that he was forming. And if I've told you this story before, put your finger up, because I can repeat myself without knowing it. One day he came out of his office without, old men get like that, you know. He came out of his office with a messenger or two, excuse me, and he stopped by my door, and he was talking to me about the musicians, the main group, the Stars or whatever they were called. And then he paused and he looked at me and he said, "I sure could do with your help." And I wasn't going to get involved. I just didn't want to. I didn't like that kind of music to begin with, but we were getting so far away from the essentials of Scientology, it really disturbed me. But anyway, he put this to me, and I'm sitting at my desk with my head around the door, looking up at him. I take my life in my hands, and I just look at him. I look straight in the eyes, and I say nothing.
Ken, your camera's moved up, so we're just seeing the top of your forehead.
Thanks.
There you go.
We can see too much of that. Anyway, he just looked at me, looking at him, and I'm just sitting there like, well, if you want to push it, you push it. And if you push it, I might do something, but right now I'm just looking at you. I'm not going to respond any more than that. And he just took his eyes away. He turned and he went out on the deck. And that, I think, was the first time I overtly defied him. Now, it's one of the interesting things about this, and it has to do with the question, because he had changed so much that he let that all go. Now, he had said to me, I think sometime in 72, before he left, he was discussing the fact that there were some people who were unhappy, or they were in ethics trouble. There was some disturbance going on. And he said to me, most of these people, they just want a good TR4, meaning that some guy was causing trouble in the tween decks. All he was asking for was just for someone to sit down with him and say, what's going on? What's bugging you?
Mm-hmm.
And here was I, looking at the Commodore straight in the eye, not answering his question, and obviously full of counter-intention to his desire that I help him with the musicians. And he didn't challenge me. He didn't assign me any ethics condition. He didn't speak to me. He didn't scold me. He didn't ask me, what's going on? He never did. Now, how come that changed in him, I don't know. But it was a serious change in my mind, and one that had very unhappy consequences, because he went further and further out of line. What?
Did money have something to do with it? I think that was in the email that you sent to me around that time. Did he become more concentrating on money?
He did after he returned. It wasn't immediate, but he quickly reorganized his lines, and he introduced the post of LRH accounts. And he put Vicky Polimini on that post. I think she had been CS3. And the line between him and Vicky Polimini as LRH accounts was between him and her directly.
Right.
By his orders.
Well, also
Yes?
Ken, when we were in Tangier at the end of 72, before he went to New York, that's when he came up with Big League Sales and had us
Yes.
photocopying that and getting it to the ship before it sailed to Lisbon so that could get implemented with the regs.
Right. Okay. Yes, that's true. And I think we're talking about LRH personally and money.
Okay.
Okay.
So he set Vicky up, and from what I could see, her purpose was to gather money, a lot of money, quickly for him, to make available for him. Now, in order to make something clear, I should say that up until that time, I had never seen him work on getting money for his own pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, he was very relaxed about money. If he wanted something for himself, he would order it usually through Irene Thrupp at Saint Hill, his personal secretary in the UK, and it was charged to the church. Somehow, I don't know. How it was charged and who paid for it never had anything to do with me. But I never saw him extravagant in his demands, his personal demands, up until 73 and later. There was a woman, Ruth Minshall, from Detroit. She wrote a couple of books based on Scientology, one based on the tone scale and the other one on how to raise children. And every quarter, she would send LRH a check for 10% of her royalties. And every time she did that, which she did for years, he returned her check with a very kind acknowledgement. He never accepted that money from her. One day in around, I think, late 71, he told me to go down to his safe on the A deck and to count up what was in the money, what was in the safe. And I counted the veterans' pension checks that he had down there. They weren't large checks, but there was a big pile of them. That came to a few $1,000s. Then there were his unopened paychecks from the Sea Org down there. And that was another couple of thousand. But I don't think there was much else. Anyway, I came back and reported this to him, and he didn't seem impressed one way or another. I don't know what he did with the checks or the pay envelopes. Anyway, that's just to illustrate that I never saw him extravagant with money for himself personally. And he was not into, that I know of, attracting money to himself so he could increase power until he came back from the States. And that was a big change. Now, how or why and that all began in him, I don't know. But
well,
can I go ahead, Janis?
Yeah, I want to bring up that while he was in the States is when he wrote the Snow White programs and sent those to Mary Sue on correcting all the false information that the government had.
Yeah, and also I was going to say, this brings up the next question. I was wondering if this has something to do about it. Tell us about Ulrich's quest for a safe space to operate from. Do you think the money concentration may have had something to do with that? He felt unsafe?
I don't think that was the primary object of his quest for a safe space. What he was looking for, in my opinion, was a welcome by some government to set up a base in their country where they would be happy to have him and give him some protection. And from there, from that base, now I'm simply going by what I know about him and the way he thought. I don't really know this is completely true, but knowing how he operated, I would have thought that he wanted to set up a base in a country, like he had tried to set up a base in Corfu. He would set up a base in the country, he would make friends with the government, he would do projects for the government which would make them see how helpful he could be, and he would gradually increase their confidence in him. And then because of that, he'd be able to exert influence beyond that country, preferably against the UK and the US governments, to make international space a little more safe for him. But he would look to build up a government's confidence in him so they would protect him. And then I think he would be looking to increase his influence over the government so he could gradually take over and use their power lines within the country and then internationally. I think that was his long view, based on what I know of, what I remember of how he thought. I don't think I have any more to say on what changed in 73, except that whatever was going on with him as Commodore before 73 got more so.
Okay.
Right. I have something to
Janice.
add to that.
Go ahead.
Yeah. You're correct on the Corfu, where he tried to get involved in the government and set up a safe space, and then he tried that again in Morocco.
Yes.
And then as time went by, he was trying to do that with Spain, but then he got kicked out of Spain. And it was the morning Mary Sue told him that he was not allowed in Spain was the morning he had that motorbike accident. And that's when I noticed his temper was just outrageous through that whole period of healing from the accident.
Yes.
And leading up to that, he'd also been working with Mary Sue to do the Snow White.
Right. Okay. Yes. Well, I can't say that I was familiar with everything that he was working on. For example, Janis, I can't say that I was aware that he was working on getting a base in Spain. That never.
He wasn't working on a base in Spain, but he was working on trying to make Spain a safe port country for us.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes.
Right. But then the government said he's not allowed in there. So that took Spain off our list of ports.
I got you. Okay.
Right.
And I guess in his mind, it would have taken Spain out of the list of countries that he might cozy up to.
Right.
Okay. But you know that thing about getting into Morocco was completely ridiculous from the start. It was unreal. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, well, they started off with the kind of business consultation, and then the post office. They were trying to train the post office staff.
Hey, Janis, explain what you're talking about Morocco. I don't think our viewers know what that story is.
Okay, well, in Morocco, there had been an attempted coup on the king. And so Hubbard put together a team of people from the ship that spoke French. And they were all trained to sec check, and they were sent to Rabat to sec check and try and nail down exactly everyone who was involved in the attempted coup. And that's a whole nother story, but
right. It wasn't successful, in other words.
Right. It was not successful, but it was another thing of him trying to get involved in the government and them trying to depend on us.
Got it.
Yeah. And to me, the insanity was he was sending in people to train Moroccan security officers on how to use the meter to catch people who had OWs and missed withholds. But these were people who hadn't had their OWs and missed withholds cleaned up. And there were people around them that would hear about this and think, oh my God, they're after my withholds and missed withholds. So I think it was just, I don't know how he thought he would ever make that work. Because
just for our listeners, for our viewers, OWs are like crimes, things that you want to hide, you don't want people to know about, and you're withholding them. That's what an OW and miswithholds are.
Right. Okay. And that shit show really precipitated the big changes, because he left in 1972 because of the mess in Morocco, and then he went and hid in New York. Read too many trashy novels and watched too much TV, it seemed.
And ate junk food.
And, probably.
No, we've had stories about, Jim Denkelsey and somebody else, they basically just cooked food for him.
Yeah, it was nothing like John Henry's cooking.
Oh, no. And he grew his hair long and just looked horrible.
Yeah.
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 Oh.
Can I go ahead and do the next question?
I think I'm done with that question. Thanks.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Well, here's the next one here. What is the story about how you signed a Sea Org contract when you hated the idea of it? You actually were a volunteer, isn't that right?
No, I never volunteered. I did not want to
Okay.
join the Sea Org. I was not a fan of the Sea Org. I only went to the ship because I was, at the time I was at Saint Hill, I was HCO exec worldwide. I'm very unhappy with what was going on because the Sea Org was sending missions here and there, and the HCO exec worldwide is responsible for policy. And here was the Sea Org and their missions violating policy left, right, and center. So I didn't know what I was doing there. Anyway, a mission came from the ship to worldwide. It wasn't particularly to do with me, but the mission in charge, Hank Larhus, showed me a telex that he'd got from LRH, and it said, "Send Urk to Flag quietly." And it was the quietly that got me. I think, why would he want me sent quietly? So that there would be no witness that I arrived, so that he could do so, he could throw me overboard or keelhaul me and not get charged for that. I just had no idea. So in order to find out, I said, okay, I'll go. So I went to the ship and got on board, and I was welcomed by Alex Sabursky, who was in Department 1, as a new recruit arrival. And I was put on that routing form. And I didn't raise any objection because I thought, I'm already in trouble. Why stir up more shit right now? So I accepted it. But the next day I was taken off and put on a special project, which is another story. When that was finished, I was put on the deck project force. That's another story. Taken off the project force and put on another special project to do with indexing policy. Although I only had the vaguest idea of how you did an index. But the work I did could have been used for an index. But anyway, in the middle of that, he put me on, LRH appointed me LRH Com Apollo. So I go over there and I'm LRH Com Apollo, and I'm in charge of the port captain's office and the engine room. I think, well, this is certainly a challenge. I'll see what.
You still there, Ken? Still there, Ken? I think he's frozen up there.
Yeah, he has.
Yeah.
He might need to go out and come back in.
Yeah, Ken, if you can hear me, go out, and then come back into the channel. That will probably reboot you. Okay, well, I'm going to take him out for right now in the background.
Yeah.
And Janis, you and I will answer questions, okay?
Okay, all right.
All right. So hold on one second here. Let me get this off, and we will go from there. Okay. Anybody have, should I go to the questions here in the, go ahead, Janis.
Yeah. There's these questions, there's comments right now from Marco, about the live streams, because Trev Anin is doing something on history. And so I'd like more information on that. And if they could email me at janisgillhamgrady@gmail.com, and that way I can help them out on whatever it is they need.
Okay. Ken's back now. I'm going to bring him back. Hi, Ken. You're back. Can you hear us okay? Ken?
Hello. I don't know what went wrong.
Oh, there we are. Okay.
Okay. We can hear you. Okay. Yes, we can hear you just fine. Okay. So anyway, you were telling us about your the Sea Org contract.
Okay. So, all right. So I'm LRH Com Apollo. So I'm more or less established as crew. And I should go back a little bit and say that the first time I bumped into LRH on the stairs on ADAC after I got to the ship, he was very welcoming, very friendly, and very warm. So the magic appeared all over again. And I just would always think, well, what's this man going to do next? And I really still wasn't enamored of the Sea Org, but I liked being on the ship. And my friendship with the old LRH was kind of renewed. And I never ever wanted to deny that. So here I am. I'm back on the crew. I'm LRH Com Apollo. Then all of a sudden, I'm CS7. I'm CS7 for a little while. I'm very close to him, and that's really good. And then he makes me LRH Personal Com. Shortly after that, I am getting to the point. Shortly after that, somebody puts Quentin on as Director of Department 1.
Quentin Hubbard?
Routine appearances and personnel. And I think to myself, oh, here we go. Because Quentin is known as a gossip. And you put this known gossip in charge of the personnel file. And whose file is he going to go for first? Well, I didn't know, but I was not surprised that a couple of days after Quentin's appointment, I got a little note from him saying, I have just happened to notice that your Sea Org contract is missing. I've attached one for you to sign. So I think to myself, oh dear, here we are. So my first thought is, well, I'll just put it in my pending basket and forget. And I remember, no, this will not work, because Quentin has the habit of coming up in the evening for a little chat with his mother. And who's going to be the first person to know that PersCom, excuse me, PersCom was sent a contract to sign because his first contract went missing, and he hasn't sent it back. So I thought that would just cause too much flap and row and noise. And now that I'm here, now that I'm PersCom, I'm not leaving of my own volition. So I signed the thing and sent it back. That's how I signed it. But I signed it with no conviction whatever. I have no respect for
gossip,
that billion-year
gossip,
nonsense
Quentin
at all.
Hubbard.
I don't think LRH originated it.
Okay, great. Is that it on that story?
Does that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Yes.
We'll go on to the next question here. This is another one that somebody asked you in the earlier chats.
You're frozen again.
Move your mouse. Can you move your mouse? Can you hear us?
Okay. I can see Do
you see the question? Can you hear me?
Everything seems fine here.
Ken, can you talk?
Can you hear us? I guess he can't.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, we hear you.
Your volume is breaking up. Your audio is breaking up.
Go out again and come back in. Just remove yourself from the
screen is frozen.
Go out and come back in.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll take the question. If the first clear was made in 1966, how did LRH explain all the clears made in the Dynetics book? Well,
Right.
He didn't. He didn't explain all those clears made in the Dynetics book. I believe that when he published GMSMH, he truly believed that he was making clears, and he was, as always, over-optimistic to a rather unreal degree. And I think he felt he had to be enthusiastically declaring huge success in order for a huge success to occur, so he would be accepted as a huge success. But he found out later that, well, other things were going on. And, well, all I can say is that he overestimated what Dianetics was doing, but he continued to explore and do the work he was doing into how to help people improve their self-management, how they manage their lives and relationships. And
Yeah.
he was quite often in the following years over-optimistic about the production of clears until he came to the development of the clearing course in 1964 and then 1965, excuse me, and then the new clears that started coming out in 1966.
Yeah,
But he never explained why those that were declared clear in earlier years were not clear.
Right, because I remember as a kid, there was these Dianetic clears, or people who, clear from Dianetics, but then you had to do the clearing course. So I always assumed there was two different types of clear. Can you hear me, Mark?
Yeah, I hear you just fine.
Okay.
Ken, can you go out of the studio and back in? Can you hear us now?
There's something wrong with my audio because it's what you're saying is breaking up.
Exit out and then come back in and see if that fixes it.
I think you might have to go all the way out.
I know.
How about we close this and start again?
Yes, well, go ahead.
You go ahead and come back in, okay? I'm taking him out right now until he comes back.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, technical problems happen.
Sorry. So are you taking him all the way out? And
no, I can't. He has to do it himself. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
I guess I can kick him from the studio, but then he's going to have to come back in. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'll kick him out.
Yeah, there you go.
He can't hear us, and then let's see if he comes back in. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. In the meantime, Janis, let's see if we have any questions here. I'm just going to put up a comment here. This is from Jeff. I love the history that Mark and Janis has brought to us. Such an archive that could have been lost, but is now available to everyone. Thanks very much, Jeff. We appreciate that. And then another comment from Mary Klein. I hope to binge watch all of Ken's interviews at some point. He's being honest and he's also quite elegant. Thank you, Mary. And I have Ken back here, and let's see. Ken, can you hear us now?
Yes. Everything's
fabulous. Yes. All you need to do is, when you can't hear us, is exit out of the studio and come back in. Okay. That's what I was trying to tell you, but you couldn't. Yeah, exactly. You couldn't hear me. So that's why. But anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So we were talking about, go ahead, Janis.
Yeah. I was talking where I always kind of thought there was two different kinds of clear, because even when we were on the ship, I remember Annie having a certain cognition and the CS sending it up to LRH and saying, what do we do with this cognition? And LRH had her declared as a Dianetics clear, which was different in my books than someone who had gone through the clearing course. And then for years, it was always just the clearing course people. And then suddenly in 78, we have everyone's a clear, whether it's Dianetics or Scientology. And then the grades get wiped out. Everything in between gets wiped out.
Yes. Yes. I got completely confused on the whole subject of clear.
Yeah.
So did I.
Yeah. Yeah. And I personally think LOH was. He didn't clarify it successfully. Something needed clarification, and it wasn't clarified. So
okay, well, here's the next question here. Okay, with LRH doing research on himself through auditing, do you think that he did any damage to himself?
I don't really know. I could say that up to the time he left the ship in 72 to go to Tangier. Every morning when he got up, well, every afternoon when he got up, he would come up, he would get dressed and come up the stairs, and I would greet him. And he usually had a solo session by then. And I could take one look at him and know if it was a good session or not. Because if it was a good session, he was glowing. But sometimes he just looked white and completely wiped out. So I guessed it hadn't been a good session. But generally speaking, he was mostly on very good indicators as he came up to...
Or grumpy.
Or grumpy, yeah. He could be both.
If it was a bad session, he was grumpy.
Yeah, just for the viewers, Ken, I mean, Hubbard was basically his own guinea pig in researching a lot of this auditing and OT levels, correct? I mean, he was digging in himself into his own psyche, wasn't he?
Yes. And I think, judging by how he looked in 70, 71, and early 72, he was doing a very good job on himself. There were times, I remember particularly in 70, when he was mostly kind of golden and glowing. He had a beautiful space. It was lovely to be in that space, and you entered that space when you approached his body, and you left that space when you went away. And he absolutely looked beautiful. But I remember one day taking the opportunity to ask him how many OT levels were there. And I was quite staggered when he said 90-something. So I didn't ask any more questions. So I don't know. I really don't know if there were 90 or not, or if he just consolidated a lot of them into one or two. But anyway, I think the main damage that LRH did. A question? Did a finger go up, Janet?
Yes, it did. The OT levels he was doing at that time is nothing like the OT levels that they have today. The knots.
Right. I wouldn't be a bit surprised.
Yeah.
I think he did himself damage with the GPM auditing that was done in the early 60s at Saint Hill. A lot of that was research. And then, of course, that could have been repaired in 1970 when the Class 12s wanted to FES his folder. Now, I could tell you a little bit about that if you like, how that all evolved.
You go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. I was up in my office, and suddenly Otto Roos is in my office. And he says to me that we, the Class 12s, we've got together, and we want to give something back to L. Ron Hubbard. We want to FES his folders and do a real good program for him. And I was actually quite touched. I knew that feeling of wanting to give something back to him. And I knew that David Mayer was involved. So I didn't have too much confidence in Otto's judgment, but I thought if David Mayer is involved, then he will keep things under control and on the right track. So I gave Otto the key to the filing cabinets that held LRH's folders. And I gave it to him without telling LRH, because I just had a feeling that LRH was going to make it more complicated than it need be. He didn't have to know. And I thought the Class 12s would do a very good job, and he really needed it. So then Quentin was one of the Class 12s, and I think that he must have mentioned this whole thing to Mary Sue, who then mentioned it to L. Ron Hubbard, and so the messenger runs began. And that was one morning when they were at breakfast in the research room, he and Mary Sue. And
I was the
I
messenger.
didn't know exactly what the subject of the message.
I was the messenger.
Janis, you want to say something? Right.
I was the messenger.
Okay. Right. Well, good for you. Anyway, I found out later that he had called for the FES folder. And I was very sorry that I hadn't known that he was calling for it. Because if I had, I would have followed the messenger down, and I would have said to whoever was in charge of the 12s on that project, don't give the Commodore that folder. It's out tech to do that. You mustn't do that. You hold your position and continue what you're doing. And I'll take responsibility in front of the messenger for saying that. And the messenger can go back and tell L1 Hubbard that I said that. And then he can do what he wants. Anyway, he got the folder and he blew up because they were listing on this folder error summary supposed RSs that had been happening in his GPM auditing.
Rock slams is what RSs means.
Rock slams. Yes, rock slams. Supposedly signs of some evil purpose. And he got upset that they were finding these RSs. And I heard later that he suspected that the Class 12s were laughing at him because there were RSs in his folder. And he just shut the whole thing down. And Mary Sue was trying to calm him down by saying that the wide FNs that they were getting on his GPM auditing were misinterpreted as RSs. But he closed the whole thing down and prevented any correction of what might have gone wrong with that auditing. And I'm pretty sure there was a lot. I mean, the GPM auditing was almost wholly listing, and there were long, long lists. And that must have engaged a huge amount of nuts restimulation and over-restimulation. And that was all begging to be handled and resolved. And he closed the door on it. So I personally believe he did himself great damage there.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't think he did damage on himself.
Janis, I heard a story. Wasn't Mary Sue the one who was auditing LRH and noted down the rock slams or whatever? And then when what was the story with that and Otto Roos? What
well, the message runs with Otto Roos because Otto was leading the Class 12s in doing the folder error summaries. So he was the main person I had the message runs with. And he's the one who gave me the folder error summary that I took to Hubbard and gave him. And then when he saw in there that they had noted down that there were rock slams, yes, as Ken said, he became very explosive. And then Mary Sue came in trying to calm him down, and she was justifying that the reads in those days were marked as rock slams when they really weren't. And that she had audited him, Hubbard, and that she's never seen a rock slam on him. So she was trying to calm the whole thing down. And then Otto comes in, and then LRH basically took a slug towards him, and Otto got out of the way. And then after all this calmed down, the next thing you know, Otto's declared and off from the ship.
Wow. That was the end of Otto Roos?
Yes.
Do you remember that too, Ken?
Is that right, Ken?
I remember Otto being declared and sent off the ship. I don't remember connecting it with the FES incident. I think, as far as I remember, there was yeah, it wasn't immediate.
It could have been, it wasn't immediate, but it definitely led to that. Before that, Otto was golden.
Yeah.
No matter how many women he was sleeping with or whatever, Otto was golden.
I can tell you, one time LRH was standing on the prom deck just outside his office, chatting with me, and there were people coming up the stairs, and he was saying to me, that Otto Roos, he's crazy. And just at that very moment, up the stairs comes Otto, and he's right in front of L. Ron Hubbard. And you should have seen the look on Hubbard's face. He went into his real 1-1 social smile face that anybody could tell was completely false, but he had no other choice. But
That's funny.
He didn't. Otto's good standing with LRH was based on the fact that at Saint Hill in 1966, I think it was, LRH had sent down an order to Otto because Otto had been an accountant in New Zealand. And he and Brian Livingston were to go through all of the books at Saint Hill and figure out how much money L. Ron Hubbard had put into Scientology, into the corporations. And so he could tell how much they owed him, which contradicts what I said earlier. But he did get a figure, but he never used it that I know of to pull money out of the church. Anyway, Otto came up with a figure of around £13 million, which was a great deal of money in those days, and LRH was crowing about it. And that's what brought Otto into LRH's great favor. Shortly after that, Otto was charged by the distribution sack at Saint Hill. Otto was exec at Saint Hill over the briefing course, over the tech division of the briefing course. And he had been caught with a briefing course student lying on a bed, and his private part was on her leg. And this is definitely against policy and against the rules and regulations of the briefing course, because staff were not allowed to have any sexual relations with the students.
Right.
So all the other execs at Saint Hill were trying to organize a COMEV on Otto. And while that was going on, Otto had reported to LRH this £13 million, whereupon LRH ordered I was the LRH com Saint Hill at the time, he ordered all as Saint Hill execs sec check. And that was done. I remember Kevin Camber did my sec check, and we couldn't come up with anything, so I went track, and I found something from the track, which was completely irrelevant and silly. Anyway, LRH then proudly announced to the whole world that all of these execs who had been trying to COMEV Otto were all guilty of much, much worse crimes than he had committed. That didn't make Otto any more popular in Saint Hill than he was before. He wasn't very popular at Saint Hill. He was a bully.
Okay.
A big bully.
Anything else to that story? Because we're going to move on to something else. Is that okay?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Better move on.
All right. Well, we're going
to be hours.
Okay. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our viewer questions for Ken. But before we do that, we're going to do a book giveaway. Okay. This is Janis's book, her first book, Commodore's Messenger, A Child Adrift in the Sea Organization, Scientology Sea Organization, right there. And get in the chat room, everybody. And if you would like to win a copy of the book, just say me or book me or whatever you want to say. And let's get that chat room filled up. Okay. And we're going to, give away a book. And Janis, tell people what they need to do if they win the book.
Yeah, if you win the book, you need to email me at janisgillhamgrady@gmail.com. And that's JANIS, not CE, but S. GILLHAMGRADY@gmail.com. And give me your information. I need an address. For Canadians, if you win, you'll have to pay the shipping because that comes in around $20-30 these days. But I'm very happy to just ship it in the U.S. for free for the winner.
And also you'll personalize the autograph too, right?
Yes, I will autograph the book. And if you want a personal message, tell me what you want me to say.
Okay, well, anyway, everybody's getting in the chat here, and I'm going to count down. Janis, I'll let you count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, okay? And then I'll just randomly pick somebody, okay? So go ahead whenever you want to, Janis.
All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Cat Andy. Cat Andy, you have a book me. Congratulations, Cat Andy.
Congratulations.
And like she said, what you need to do is, where is it at? Email Janis at this email address right here, janisgillhamgrady@gmail.com. And she'll take care of it from there. And we want to thank everybody for participating in our book giveaway. And anyway, if you want to order one of your books, you can order the book as well at Amazon.com, both book 1 and book 2. And if you'd like to buy it, you can buy it there. So anyway, thanks very much, Janis, for giving that away. And Ken, we're going to go to viewer questions, okay? And so you'll see the questions down below, and I'll read them to you and also to us, and we'll go on from there, okay? First question. Go ahead, Janis. Yeah.
Have we already gone through the whole list of questions we'd put together before?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'm going into the viewer questions here now. Okay, so the first question here is from Davlin88. Question: is Scientology strong in Las Vegas? Go ahead, Janis.
Not that I know of. I mean, they moved to a dead-end street. You know, they were on Sahara, a main street in Vegas, and they end up moving to a bigger location on a dead end. No foot traffic, no car traffic. So you don't even know where they are.
That's exactly right. They did a big grand opening of their ideal organization, and it's completely empty now. The last time I drove by there, there's nothing happening there. It's nothing going on. Anyway, thanks, Davlin88. What's that?
Is an empty org their ideal?
I guess so.
Yes.
I forgot to mention, if you want to super chat us, you can super chat us as well in this thing here. Next question, Dastardly Saboteur. Question: it seems to me that you all joined Scientology to help mankind in some way. After leaving, did you find another way to do that? Ken, why don't you go ahead and answer that?
Yes, I did join Scientology because it definitely seemed to me to be a way of producing what it said it wanted to produce, and that is a civilization of which we could be proud. After I left, I did not find another way to do that, no.
Okay. And Janis?
Well, I joined because that's where my mother was.
No, but after leaving, did you find another way to help mankind?
Well, I got in the mortgage business and helped people get homes.
That's right.
And then I've written my books, which have helped people. Yep. And we're now doing this show.
That's exactly right.
And when people have left and needed somewhere to go or what to do, we used to be the original place to go.
That's right. Before the Aftermath Foundation, there was Las Vegas City Mortgage.
That's right.
Thanks for the question, Dastardly Saboteur. Ken, when you were off, when your camera went out, we had this comment here from Mary Klein, and she says, I hope to binge watch all of Ken's interviews at some point. He's being honest, and he's also quite eloquent. So thank you very much for that comment. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary.
Okay. Next question here. Vernon Salvatierra. Ken, did you ever know Quentin Hubbard?
Oh, yeah. I knew him at Saint Hill when he was little. I didn't have an awful lot to do with him personally. Oh, I don't remember. I couldn't say we had a relationship. What stands out for me when we were at Saint Hill was Quentin develop a little game that he had with Vixie, Mary Sue's corgi. When Vixie's meal was put down on the floor, Quentin got into getting down on the floor and moving his mouth as though he was going to eat Vixie's dinner. And this put her into a furious temper, which made all the children giggle. And I think it had a lot to do with Vixie becoming so bad-tempered later on. Anyway, he had that little game for a while. I don't remember anything else outstanding about Quentin from Saint Hill Manor. On the ship, he and I did not get on. We were different kinds of people. I remember one time he and Arthur were fooling about on the prom deck. I think this must have been 69 when I was CS7. Anyway, he was fooling about and making quite a bit of noise. And I thought, well, this won't do. He's too near the Commodore to be making all this noise. So I opened the prom deck door and asked him to either be quiet or go play somewhere else. And then I closed the door, and as I closed the door, I heard Quentin say, "Old woman." So I took no notice. I didn't care. And later, Quentin could have really bad judgment. We had a load of people from outer orgs come in, and there was a guy from an org in the States who was small in stature. He was slight, and he had a squeaky voice. And I remember Quentin had overheard him, and he was sitting in the ADAC foyer speaking in this guy's squeaky voice, just a little bit. And I'm thinking, if this goes on much longer, somebody's going to have to tell Quentin to stop it, because it's going to cause a huge personal upset if the guy finds out that the Commodore's son is doing this. But he never got found out, so that kind of blew over. Quentin became an auditor. He gave me a lot of auditing. It was mostly Dianetics. And the technical people might be interested to know that I had done OT3 probably 3 times when LRH ordered a lot of the people to have Dianetic auditing, including me. So despite the rule that you must not ever audit OT3s on Dianetics, I had a lot of Dianetics. Much of it was given by Quentin, who was a decent auditor. I have no complaints, except that he would get to the point where he couldn't hide the fact that he was bored stiff. And I guessed it was either to do with me or it was to do with just auditing Dianetics, which doesn't require a lot of imagination. Anyway, I didn't have to make a fuss about that. It didn't bother me, and I was getting good results. Then the only other thing is that later in, I think 72, and I think it was Janis Mead, when she took over the SO1 office, she and I were a little bit friendly for a bit. So we were going out one Liberty, and she told me that Quentin had said that she mentioned one other person who was on the ship. He said they are endless cases. I thought, what a nerve that little guy has to be saying such things about people he's audited to people who are not intact. It was really quite naughty. However, I didn't particularly mind. I didn't take it personally. I didn't take it to heart. I didn't believe it. So I'll just let it go. Then another event to do with it, Quentin, was in, I think, 72. when he was obviously getting into trouble with his father. Kathy Karyotaki was in charge of the household at the time, and she was sort of involved with handling Quentin. She wasn't reporting to me on handling Quentin. So I was kept off the line. And I didn't see what business it was of mine to get between Hubbard and his son. It was obviously a family matter. Anyway, it culminated in Quentin being assigned to the RPF one night. And that night, when Mary Sue found out, she was beside herself. And I don't know what information she had or what she was acting on, but suddenly she appeared in my office door and said in a very loud, aggressive, and angry voice, "And whose evil purposes are you dramatizing?" And this is quite a mouthful, because it's just a couple of listing questions all in one, neither of them proper listing questions. So I let it come to me for just a split second, and I thought, no, I mustn't think about this. This is just silly. Anyway, I had some auditing later, and it didn't show up as having any charge. But in later years, I've wondered if that question that she was yelling at me loud enough for LRH to hear in his office was meant for him. Now, I don't know. I'm not saying it was. She was beside herself.
About that.
Yes?
Yeah,
Janis?
the point on Kathy working with Quentin, they actually ended up as twins on the RPF, because what Mary Sue was upset about was Quentin had attempted suicide that night. And LRH was down there trying to get him to throw up all the pills that he'd taken and trying to deal with it. And then he was so mad, that's when he wanted to assign Quentin to the RPF. And Mary Sue was pleading for her to be able to audit Quentin so he wouldn't have to do the RPF. And that's what that was all about.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we're going to do a future episode on Quentin Hubbard's death, which was quite traumatic for Hubbard and Mary Sue. And we've got, hopefully we're going to get some other people here that were in Las Vegas that were dealing with that as well. So we'll talk about that.
I have another little story I can tell you. Another little story about Quentin. After the death, I was first com in Clearwater, and I had somebody told me that Mary Sue wanted to speak to me on the phone. So she was asking if she could speak to me. I said, yes, of course. So finally I got the call from Mary Sue, and she said to me that an officer in the Las Vegas police would be calling me because he had been told that I was one of Quentin's best friends, and he was looking for any information that might tell him if Quentin had been speaking about suicide. And I agreed to take the call only because I felt so sorry for Mary Sue. I had a lot of respect for Mary Sue, and I agreed to lie to the Las Vegas policeman that I was his best friend and he had never spoken about suicide, and that was done. I did that. I don't particularly regret it, but it's not something I remember fondly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to do another video of Quentin and his suicide and so forth at a later date. So we'll get into more then.
Okie dokie.
Okay. Next, we're going to move on here. Eon Life is a new member to our channel. We want to thank you very much for joining and becoming a member of our channel. Like I mentioned earlier, people, we need need people to join as members, just click on that join button on our page. And we want to thank you for joining. And let's go to the next question here. Yeah. This is from Marco Redano. Do you ever look back on your life and see it as wasted decades of your life? I don't mean this as a troll. I don't look back on it as being wasted. I gained and learned a lot. And, as L. Ron Hubbard said, I hate to say this, but never regret yesterday. Life is in you today, and you make your own tomorrow. And that's really the way I look at life, is that I'm always looking forward. I don't regret anything that I did in the past. I could have had a completely different life, but you know what? This was my choice, and this was the direction that I went. So I don't regret it. How about you, Janis?
I don't have any regrets on my life. So,
Ken?
Yeah.
On the whole,
Ken?
no. I don't think I would. I'm glad I had all the experiences I had, and that I stuck with it as long as I did, because I came out with a means of earning a living in my late 40s, and I had no other qualification. Anyway, I could audit, but I often felt that decades of my life in Scientology, and especially with LRH, were wasted, in that he and the people around him wasted the opportunities that he had opened up, because he had changed his priorities and his purposes. He had changed from wanting to help create a civilization of which we could be proud, to creating something which could make him feel proud of himself. And people around him, and I have to say principally myself, just failed to handle him on that. So I do have regrets about that. But on the other hand, something kept me going, and I think that was my admiration and respect for the real L. Ron Hubbard that I got to know at Saint Hill, and I thought was still there. And I just couldn't ever quite disconnect myself from him, from that LRH. It was very, very difficult. I finally came to the point where I had to. But having come to that point, I had the wonderful experience of becoming an HGC auditor in Clearwater, at the Mecca of Tech, and being very successful for a whole year, doing 40 hours and more on nuts, which takes some doing. So I felt I'd always wanted to prove that I could audit, and I finally did, and then I left. So I have a great disappointment in my Scientology history, but I also have a great pride. The principal disappointment is that we failed to help L. Ron Hubbard remain a Scientologist. He went away from being a Scientologist into something else, and we didn't pull him back. And that's something I think is regretful. Yes, Janis?
Yeah, no, finish what you're saying, Ken. When you're done, I'll then say something.
I think I finished. Thank you.
Okay. Thinking about that question a little more, there are times where I have looked at what we were trying to accomplish and were accomplishing, and then I looked to what Miscavige has been doing, and that definitely has wasted all the work that we did. He undid everything.
Absolutely.
Speaking of which, Ken, of which, we've never asked you, did you ever have any interaction with David Miscavige, or did you know him at all when he was a messenger in Clearwater or anything like that?
I don't think I ever set eyes on him. I don't think I ever saw him or met him or talked to him.
No, I don't think you would have.
Thank you, Marco. We're going to go to our next question. This is for Janis. Rice and beans consisted of what type of beans and what type of rice? How was it prepared and served? Did anyone ever get in trouble for their flatulence from the beans? Janis, go ahead.
It was white rice, and it was, I don't know, brown beans.
Oh, that's funny.
I didn't get to have to eat rice and beans very much.
Yeah,
so
I never did.
Really. Yeah, I'd go to the canteen and get something else.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Greg.
Those Hot Pockets.
Right.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I
Okay,
had
great.
a lot of rice and beans at the Fort Harrison.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Peter, for that question. We have another member, Mary Klein. Thank you very much for joining our channel. We really appreciate you, Mary. That you made some nice comments, and we join you to our channel. We really appreciate that. And here's the next question. This is for Ken from Vernon Salvatierra. Ken, did L. Ron Hubbard hit his children when they misbehaved?
I never saw it. And I don't think he would have. Nothing ever gave me the impression that he would have hit a child. No.
No.
How about you, Janis? When you were a kid, did you ever see anything like that? No.
No.
Okay. Thanks very much for that question. Next question is from Michael Feldman. Question for Janis. How far did you get up the OT levels, and how do you view your gains in retrospect?
You know, I got all the way up through old OT7. I'm echoing. So I got through old OT7, and then I later did not. I did not do OT7. I felt I had the biggest gains doing grades 0 through 5, 5A. Once I hit power, I got my Power Plus. That was in probably 68, 69. And then I just didn't do any more progress up the bridge and for another 5 years. I was just totally happy with power processing.
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. We'll go with this next question here from Vernon again. Question, Mark Fisher, does Ken know Mike Rinder?
No, I don't. I don't think I've ever met him. I did audit his father. I audited his father on Knots at Clearwater. That was in 81 or 82, but no, I don't think I ever met Mike.
Well, Mike was on the ship. Mike was on the ship with us, and you were always up on the prom deck, and he would have been down in the tween decks. And he was also in Madeira. So your paths probably didn't even cross on the ship.
Yeah, didn't he work with? Was he working with Carrie, or he was working with Carrie or somebody, right? In management, yeah.
Yeah, he was like a communicator for Carrie when Carrie was in the tween decks as the commanding officer of the Flag Bureau.
And also he was in, was it Madeira where the rock festival happened? He was one of the guys that was with Jim Dinkhalsey, right? In town when the Apollo got stoned.
Yes.
Okay. Next question here. Hans Christian Schwartz. Was that the time when Otto Roos was beached? I guess that's talking about when we were telling the story about Otto Roos. And when you mean beached, that means kicked off the ship.
Yes. Yes, so that was around that time.
Okay. Thanks very much for that question. Vernon again. Mark Fisher, did you ever go on the Apollo? No, that was before my time. I got in Scientology just as they were getting off and moving to Daytona and then eventually to Clearwater. So no, I did not. Thank you so much for that question, Vernon. Next question here is, any idea why Hubbard had Captain Bill thrown out of the Church of Scientology? Janis, she didn't have him thrown out. Didn't Captain Bill blow?
Yeah, he blew.
He blew?
Yeah, he got a new wife, Daphne Dan, and he blew with her. The LRH did not kick him out.
Daphne Dan, I remember that name. I can't put a face to her, but whatever happened to Joan Robertson?
Joan took a leave of absence because her mother was to go see her mother. And while she was there, she decided not to come back. And I remember Janidir trying to talk Joan into coming back, and Joan wanted to talk to me. And so I got on the phone with Joan, and she's telling me the problem she was having with her mom, and she'd felt she'd given her time, and I was supposed to handle her, but I supported what she did, and just hung up the phone afterwards and just said to janitor, Joan's not coming back. But I wasn't going to push it. She had done her time, and she'd done well.
Okay. Thanks very much for that question. We got a super sticker from Montana. Oh, sorry, Ken.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. It's not important.
I was just going to thanking Montana Mystery. Thank you so much for that super sticker. We appreciate the support. And we've got another question here from Vernon. Ken, did you have to pay your way up the bridge?
I did up to OT3. I did it as a staff member on contract, and I think I got 50% discount. And the money was taken out of my wages every week. So it was all paid off. After that, I was on the ship, and the auditing just happened. I didn't ask for it, but I guess the auditors from the HGC were aware that I had LRH's ear. I could always say things to L. Ron Hubbard. So I was well looked after by the HGC. I was hauled into session regularly.
I have to admit that happened to me too. That happened to me too when I was working for Miscavige. I was always a priority for auditing. Yeah.
Me too.
So I had a lot, I had a lot of very, very good auditing, and of course LRHCS, most of it. But I was going to add something, a little story. Oh yeah, when I left the Sea Org, when I left the Fort Harrison, as I left, I was kicked out and declared. But, you know, I never ever got a freeloader bill. And of course, I didn't write in and ask for one. I wasn't going to pay it anyway. But I figured it was because somebody had said, he knows too much. We better just leave him alone and see what he does. So I haven't paid a penny. I got everything up to, yeah?
Finish what you're saying.
What, Janis?
No, finish what you're saying.
I got everything up to Audited Knots. I was on Audited Knots when I left Flag. And I had all that CSing from Hubbard. I had the training I had before I became a Knots auditor and the Knots auditor training. So I could have had a very, very big freeloader bill. That's all, Janis. Thank you.
Right. Well, it's interesting that you say that you knew too much, because that when Kimma and Michael left, LRH told the GO specifically, leave them alone when they blew, because they knew too much.
Right.
So that would be the same as with you. Leave you alone.
Right. Well, yes. I can add another little story. While I was auditing in Clearwater, I suddenly got told I was being flown to LA the next day. And so I got to LA, then I found I was to be interviewed by Earl Cooley, Hubbard's lawyer.
Attorney. Yeah.
Attorney, excuse me. So I was, on the morning after I got to LA, I was put in a room, and in comes Earl Cooley. And I'm very surprised because he doesn't look like a lawyer or an attorney. He doesn't look like he's obviously very well dressed and spends a lot of money on his shoes, but he just doesn't look impressive. Anyway, he asks me a question, then he asks me another question, and suddenly he turns on his heel and walks out. And as he walks out, he says, well, we don't want you in the witness box. So that was the product of my trip to LA.
Okay, thanks for that, Ken. Okay, we've got a super chat here from the Rafa Dafadu. Hi, Janis or Ken. Is Andrei Tabayoyan still with us? He figures prominently in your stories, but don't know his status if he has been interviewed. Janis?
Yes, Andre is still with us. I saw him back in February of this year.
Me too.
And we had a great chat and caught him up on the different things. And he's living his life and just being Andre.
We would love to have him on. We haven't heard from him in terms of doing an interview, but Andre's a great guy.
But we have so many interviews lined up, and we got people like Ken, and we got Joe Van Staden coming up, and we've had Neville. So we're keeping busy, and we'll get to Andre.
Yeah. Ken, did you know Andre?
Sure.
Okay.
Only on the ship, and he was. Yeah, he was a few rungs beneath me in terms of who was where on the totem pole.
Yeah.
But I saw quite a lot of him, and I thought highly of him.
Thanks very much for that super chat. And Vernon Saltiara, Ken is great. Thank you, Ken, for answering my questions. Well, we appreciate you, Vernon, for watching and asking lots of very intelligent questions, and we're happy to answer them for you. And let's see, I've got one other one here before we go, and it says from Tom Miller, did you know John McMaster?
Yes, I did. I knew him at Saint Hill. I was the household officer, and he was, first of all, he was a briefing course student, and then he was in tech at Saint Hill. I didn't have very much to do with him, except that once I don't know why he did, but he offered to give me a session. He gave me a session, and it was good. We chatted now and again, but he was very charming, very charming. I think there was once a hint that he and I might get closer, but it went over my head. I wasn't interested in that. Did I tell you about the fuss that happened when he became clear? He was out on a reg tour, and suddenly I was LRHCom worldwide, and suddenly the people in Exec Council US were all excited about John McMaster being clear, and could they please have a big event to announce him? And nobody at Saint Hill had any knowledge of John McMaster going clear. And what had happened was that he had been speaking to friends of his privately and saying that he might be clear. And one of them sent a telex to him congratulating him on becoming clear. And she signed it with her name. But she happened to be Director of Success, Saint Hill. So it was taken over in LA that the Director of Success, Saint Hill, was congratulating John on behalf of Saint Hill on his completion of the clearing course. So that got resolved. We had John back to Saint Hill immediately, and he was given a clear check and announced as clear number one, and then he went back to LA and did his big event. I next saw him on the ship a few times after I got there. He was not happy. I remember there was a flag order came out appointing John as they made him a cardinal, and that's all it says. John McMaster is promoted to cardinal. I thought, how stupid does this get? Anyway, he was then sent on a mission he was obviously unhappy. He was sent on this mission to the United Nations, where he was supposed to get support for Scientology. And I heard that he was sending in complaints that he wasn't being supported. He wasn't getting money. He was having trouble just meeting his ordinary living expenses, let alone making inroads on these diplomats at the United Nations. And eventually he blew. And I never had contact with him after he left the ship.
Okay.
He had great charisma and charm. And he could have been something really important in the organization, but he wasn't allowed.
Okay, Ken. Ken, we got one quick question, and then we're going to go ahead and end off here. Somebody asked, what year was it that you were kicked out of the Sea organization?
What was the question?
What year were you kicked out of the Sea Org when you left?
Yes, that was 1982. November 1982.
And then one other quick question. Is there any orgs in Scotland, around in wherever you live, or in Scotland at all?
Happy.
Yes, there's an org in Edinburgh, Edinburgh's about an hour away by bus. I don't know of any others in Scotland, no.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
The org is called Happy. And it's down by High Street, in that area, in the old part of town, isn't it?
Yeah, it was in the old part of town. It's now in a road called South Bridge.
Oh, okay.
It's
all right, Ken, we want to thank you for being with us here on this live stream Q&A. We've got to wrap up here now, but we appreciate you coming on and answering our questions as well as the viewers' questions. And is there anything last thing you would like to say before we go ahead and finish off here?
No, I think once you get me started talking about something, I'll go on forever. But I appreciate very much your having me on the show again. And I've enjoyed the questions and answering them. And I thank you both for your very great kindness. Thank you.
And Ken, I've enjoyed chatting with you about old times too. It's been fun. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. All right, everybody, just want to let you know, please subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button. We need more subscribers. We're very close to 7,000 subscribers. We would love to get over it. If you are watching this and you have not subscribed, hit that subscribe button and hit that like button.
Wow.
Okay. And also, if you want to become members of our channel, you'll get some extra perks. And we look forward to having private conversations with you all. All right. The other thing is if you have any other questions that we haven't answered, go in the comment section of the video and please write your questions. Janis and I check them all the time, and we will be happy to answer them very quickly. Is there anything else, Janis, or we're ready to rock and roll out of here, right?
We're ready to rock and roll out of here and have a good Sunday. Thank you for listening.
Ken, stay on. Okay. We'll talk to you as soon as we end the video. Anyway, bye-bye, everybody.
Okay.